Welcome to Double Fries, No Slaw. I went faster than Richie was expecting there. Um, Sunday, February 16th. We are in the doldrums of the off season. We'll give some love here to Guthrie's in a moment. Bet US, Roback, and Garnet and Gold here in a while, or in just a little while. But Richie, how's your weekend been?
Good man. It's been fairly quiet, not done a whole lot, which is kind of what I enjoy, honestly. Instead of being out and about, so I'm very happy with how the weekend has gone. How about you?
Yeah, pretty good. I don't know if I've talked about it on here or not, but Elena's playing softball, and so that's been a lot of our Saturday mornings. She has practice through the week too, but it is kind of fun. It's been a long time since I've just gone up and like gone to the ballpark on Saturday mornings. So it is kind of a fun thing. It's not super serious. Like she's just starting out, and she's like in the 6 to 7 year old range, and they don't keep score, and everybody bats, but she really
Uh,
likes it. She has fun.
that's
She
ridiculous.
enjoys it.
I,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. They don't keep score. Um,
none of it's serious
I,
enough.
I'm glad I don't have kids because I'd be the dad that would be yelling at the ump like like
There's no
that's not
umps.
a
There's
strike.
no ump. Yeah, there's no umps. The problem is like they don't like everybody scores like everyone scores. Like they never record outs because like they're not like if you get a hit, you're getting on base. You're getting to first base. So
Okay,
like there's no like if you hit the ball, which if you don't hit it from the toss, they'll just put it on a tee. Like no one ever gets out. So there's no point in keeping score. It's just who has more players.
if
Like who
our
won.
if our friend Michaela is watching this show, she is probably fuming right now, knowing the competitive spirit that she has uh, and love of the game.
She's been on fire. She's got a home run in each of the last 3 games, and softball's killing it down in Clearwater. They play
Yeah,
tonight on ESPN, which would be a lot of fun. Baseball up 3-0 right now, trying to get a sweep as I watch it on the PlayStation while we talk. But double fries, no slaw. Yeah, so a good weekend, even though Richie hates my kids playing sports. A good weekend nonetheless. Double fries, no slaw, brought to you by Guthrie's. You can visit all three of their locations in Tallahassee: 1818 West Tennessee, 2550 North Monroe, and 2870 Appalachia Parkway. Um, a slow time of year, Richie. Right now, we've got some things we want to talk about, but it almost feels like we're pulling from the bottom of the barrel to try and find things to fill time with. Um, not the most exciting time of the year for FSU football.
no, not really, but I'm already as you say that as we come off a 10 loss season, which is just wild to say because I've never been able to say that in my 37 years on this earth. Um, I'm already looking at the next season schedule and starting to plan out what games I want to go to. Definitely going to go for the Alabama game. Obviously, that's no brainer. That'll probably be a costly weekend, but that's okay. Um, but yeah, no, there's not a whole lot going on this time of year. This is the time of year that I'm typically looking forward to July when NCAA comes out, and luckily we have our our college football 25 dynasty because that keeps me busy every night, and I'll get a text from the dynasty group, saying, "Hey, we're just waiting on UNLV to play," and I'll just look at my wife and Lindsay, and she'll look at me and says, "Don't tell me you got to play a game. Like these guys move fast, man."
Yeah, at least it's something to kill some time with because I agree with you. Like, yeah, the off season sucks, but anyway, all right, we are going to do something today. We're going to do our top 5 guys in the portal that Florida State picked up and just kind of go through some of our notes, why we like them, why we think they'll be big impacts. Obviously, Florida State struggled to find anything out of the portal last year that brought them any success. And we're obviously hoping that things are different this year. We haven't compared lists. Maybe we should have at the start of this thing, but we haven't compared lists. We haven't looked at each other's lists. Let's do our top 5. Richie, you can start. If one of us mentions, we only took so many guys, and I'm sure we kind of know who our impact guys
Yeah.
are. But if one of us mentions a guy that is on somebody else's list, then we can just kind of add thoughts there. So we probably won't pass this thing back and forth 10 times. But who's your number 1 on your list?
So you want to start at number 5 and work down to one?
I don't really care. Whatever you want to do is
Start at
fine.
5 and let's build some suspense here.
It ain't that much suspense. I don't. These people know what's coming. But go ahead.
So my number 5 is Deuce Robinson,
Okay.
wide receiver from USC. Florida State was heavily in the mix. Obviously, his dad was the original 4th and 14 against Florida back in the 2003 game. Dominic Robinson, he's a guy that I really wanted out of high school. USC was able to snag him, but now he has transferred to Florida State, and the wide receiver play was pretty atrocious last year. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me. So he's my number 5.
Okay, I didn't put mine in order, but I'll just kind of compare wide receivers. I don't have Deuce on mine because I put Squirrel White because I figured you would put Deuce. So Deuce would be in my top 5 for sure, and he's probably a tie with Squirrel White. But yeah, same reasons. Wide receiver position was just so awful last year that you're hoping it can get better. Year 3 at this point of Hakeem Williams. Some of the young guys that you had like McCoy and Moore that were on the roster last year, they're very excited for Boggs and feel like he could be a guy that produces really early. So I think Squirrel and if Hakeem makes a jump, obviously you're probably thinking Deuce is your number 1. I don't know that you have like a number 1 that would start like a ton of other places. Robinson's probably the closest to that, but you might have gone from like a bunch of number 3s to like 4 or 5 number 2s now, right? Where you really do have a lot of solid options, and you hope that somebody, whether it's Hakeem, whether it's Deuce, whether it's Squirrel, whether it's one of those young guys from last year, whatever, you hope that somebody can truly be a number 1 this year. But even if not, it feels like you've raised the floor of that room a ton, and Squirrel White, Deuce Robinson certainly helped you do that. What you got next?
Yeah, so Squirrel White was actually my number 3 since you just mentioned him. I think he's got a ton of talent. I think Tennessee, he was not a player that they wanted to lose, but he just felt for whatever reason he wanted to find another opportunity. So I actually had him at number 3, but my number 4, again, position of need, Adrian Medley from UCF, and I feel somewhat confident in that take because Herb Hand and Gus Malzahn, who came over from UCF, they're not going to take a bum with them. If they brought someone with them from UCF, it's someone that they really like. They like their game. And the offensive line, again, when you're 2 of 10, everyone underperformed. But the offensive line, I was shocked at how bad they were. And I'm hoping that Medley can help, improve that unit.
Okay, so yeah, I'm on the offensive line here too on number 4. I put Luke Pettibon though. Just middle, kind of the same idea, right? Like I just, that center position's so massive. He's kind of the captain of the O-line. Obviously a kid that touches the ball every single play. I think, you could go with all 5 offensive line though, or all 4 that you kind of expect to start. And so honestly, in doing this list, it probably should have just been like the 4 offensive linemen and Castellanos, but to kind of have a little diversity of different guys we were putting on it. I have Pettibon for all the same reasons. A guy who was kind of all ACC-ish, like he brings a ton of talent, like played really well at Wake, and you're hoping that he can kind of translate that over to Florida State. And the offensive line, like we talked about with the receiver room, was just absolutely terrible. And so I feel like our picks have been not boring, but just somewhat like, oh, well, you're picking guys where you were just terrible. Like you pick anybody there. Yeah, probably. Like that's how bad those ones
Every
were.
position, terrible.
Yeah, anybody coming in is an upgrade at those 2 positions for sure. So yeah, Pettibon's my next one. And then I'll keep it since you did your number 3 of Squirrel White.
Yep.
My number 3 is Randy Pittman. I'm really excited for this tight end. Just a kid that UCF absolutely did not want to lose. A kid that so you remember Kylan Fox, who was committed here and then ended up flipping, or was he committed here or you just thought he was going to commit here? I don't remember one way or the other, but a kid that Florida State absolutely kind of like held the lead for. And then he ended up going to UCF. They sold him in a big way on being able to be in a lot of 2 tight end formations with Randy Pittman. And I think he's going to be phenomenal. I think he's going to be really, really good for the Noles. Obviously, you have some tight end talent. We'll see what happens with Amari Williams if he plays both sides of the ball. You have Landon Thomas back. You got Biscuit back this year, which to me still like is a little bit of an interesting take. We'll see kind of where that falls. But I like Pittman a ton. I think he brings a really dynamic skill set. He's huge. You need some guys that can separate and create matchup nightmares for defenses, and I think he does. So I like Pittman a ton. So he's my number 3. I think we're up to 2 on you because we did 3 for you already.
Yeah, I do like Pittman as well. He's not on my top 5, and again, this list, who you talk to, no matter what outlet you're talking about, it's going to vary. But I do like the Pittman pick. I'm just not huge on tight ends because I've not really seen Mike Norvell use tight ends outside of that big TV draw against North Carolina in 2020 when we hit him for like a 40-yard gain. But my number two is James Williams, the edge rusher from Nebraska. I think, again, we did not get much pressure on the quarterback. So these might sound boring, but I think these are legitimately good pickups because you are filling needs, and that's what you need to do in the transfer portal. You need to do a better job in high school recruiting. But every year, I don't care if you're Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, you're going to have needs that you need to fill in the transfer portal. And I think James Williams fills that need.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for him. He's actually my number two as well. And then I'll flip to number one, and then we might have the same number one here. It wouldn't shock me at all if we did. But yeah, he's my number two as well. I mean, I would say I like that you got Jackson back, and I think you've got other pieces on that line that can come together. But I would say defensive line is a pretty big concern for me heading into spring. Like that's a position group that I think really needs to improve, really needs to, take a step forward because it was terrible last year and you lost a lot of the terribleness off of it, thankfully. But you still just have no idea how it's going to perform, right? Like you got guys Williams was really, really good, but you got guys from maybe lower levels to come up. You lost a lot of what you thought was going to be really, really good there last year in Peyton and obviously Farmer climbing up draft boards. I mean, he was really good for you even on a defensive line that wasn't very good. MJJ went to Oklahoma. Again, he was terrible while he was here, so nobody's upset about that. But you're just wondering, if that defensive line, I mean, we couldn't stop the run at all last year. And so you're kind of wondering, can they this year? Is it crazy to say I have more confidence in the offensive line based on who they brought in than I do the defensive line? Now I trust Coach Knighton and I think that they'll be okay, but like until you see it, man, it's really hard to know. It's really hard to know kind of where that goes, what ends up happening. So yeah, I need Williams to be good. I need the entire defensive line to be good, but he's my number two. Like I think he needs to be a difference maker out there. And then number one, I mean, maybe we have the same thing here. I mean, it's the quarterback for me. Yeah. It's what Castellanos does or doesn't do. I was asked about it yesterday on a radio hit for some guys in North Florida, and I just kind of said, like, look, he's going to be the difference, right? Like, last year we thought that we could kind of just bring in a game manager that there'd be enough good around him to where like DJ wouldn't have to win or lose games. Like I think they're going to ask Castellanos to go out and win or lose games at times. And I think he probably will win you some games and he probably will lose you some games, and if he's slightly better than he is bad, then they'll probably be 7-5, 8-4. If he's slightly worse than he is better, they're probably going to be 5-7, 6-6, right? Like that's just, it's razor thin margins. Those are their four most likely scenarios for records, right? Whatever order you want to rank them, 7 most likely, 6 second, 8, and then 5. That'd probably be how I rank them in order of what they finish with. It's going to come down to how well Castellanos plays, and if he plays well, they'll be in just about every game. If he doesn't, buckle up, man, because it's going to get uncomfortable around here. So, I mean, I don't know how you'd pick anybody but him as your number one.
Yeah, that was the easiest one to pick. The other 4 were a little tricky to try and figure out, but Castellanos is by far the number one. I had no idea he was related to Devontae Freeman, which is pretty cool. But yeah, he is the guy that's going to come in. Gus Malzahn took a quarterback team or a team led by quarterback Nick Marshall to the BCS national title game in 2013. Shout out to the reigning BCS national champs, Florida State. But yeah, I think he adds a dynamic that we haven't really seen. Even Jordan Travis's last year, he didn't run nearly as much as I thought he would. And the one time he felt like he really needed to run, it ended his career at Florida State, unfortunately. But no, I think quarterback is the most important position in any team sport out there. And it's more so in college than it is in the NFL. In the NFL, you can win with average or bad quarterbacks. In college, it's a lot harder to do that. So I agree with you. How far he takes us will be based on his performance, obviously. But he's clearly the most important transfer, and that could be a good thing or a bad thing come September.
Yeah, we'll see what it ends up looking like. let's give some love to BetUS. BetUS, you can bet on, man, whatever you want at this point. College basketball is up and going. We've certainly got, well, it's not certainly, we've got a few games left in Coach Ham's career. We've got the NBA going, NHL. I mean, shoot, I'm over there on college baseball and a bunch of stuff. I've made money on the Knolls all 3 days, and hopefully I'll make it again today. So make sure that you're betting with BetUS. YouTube 150 is the code for 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125% on your next two, all of that up to $2,000. We appreciate them for their support. Richie, what we have next up? All right, let's do this. I've seen Pate do this. I've seen other people do this, just kind of a temperature check of the fan base, just what the fan base is feeling. So, like, I don't really know, like, how to quantify or how to gauge, like, where we were at maybe early December. But it wasn't good, you know?
Yeah.
And if you said, like, it was 100 degrees, like, as hot as you could realistically be, like, I mean, I guess you can get, like, to, like, 108 and stuff and still not die. But if you just said that we were at 100-degree temperature, right, or water was boiling, Celsius, whatever, yeah, we certainly weren't in a good spot. How do you feel like where do you think the fan base is right now? Because we have had the coaching changes. They had a pretty nice close on the trail. Things have kind of cooled down on certain situations. You got rid of some of the coaches you thought you should. Maybe didn't get rid of everybody, but like just where do you think, and again, I'm not looking for an actual temperature or an actual, you know, but like a 1 to 10. If everybody was like a 10 back in December, like where are people right now, the way you read things?
All right, so I'll do Celsius, right? So 1 to 100. I think that I have a lot of the vast majority of my followers on X are Florida State fans, and I follow them all back for the most part. So I see kind of the extremely optimistic ones, and then the very pessimistic ones, and I feel like you and I are kind of probably in the middle there. But I'd say, again, going on the Celsius scale, 1 to 100, I'd say it's probably a 35 because you don't go from 13-0 to 2-10 and just have a ton of optimism about what's happening with the program, especially when all your best players are gone. You saw, Fisk and Verse were two finalists for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Verse obviously won it. So I just feel like there's not a ton of optimism right now in the fan base. And even me, I've been accused of being overly optimistic. Even I can't say I'm optimistic right now. I like the changes they've made. If Norvell really is giving Malzahn total control of the offense, I think that's a good move. I like the transfers. We talked about it in our first segment. I do like some of the guys we brought in, but I'm going into the season with very low expectations, and I think most Florida State fans are, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I don't. So what was your number again? Sorry.
I think a 35 is what I said.
Oh, okay. All right. So I was thinking of it backwards. Like I was thinking like hottest would be like, okay, so that makes sense. Yeah. So I'm probably somewhere closer to like 50, right?
Okay.
Is the way I read things. So maybe just slightly above that. I think that people, I think that a lot of the changes have not given like a ton of confidence for the season. Like Florida State's going to go out and win 9 or 10 games. But yeah. I do think a lot of people are much happier today than they were like the Saturday after Thanksgiving, right? Like I think that literally just firing some of the coaches they did and moving on from people like started to smooth things over, started to like get people going back in the right direction. And then I think the like we mentioned, the close on signing day, being able to go out and, I mean, they've got a pretty good portal class. I think that probably weighs less on people's minds because they had a good portal class last year, right? And
yeah,
what did that get them, right? So I do think that the portal is a little bit less, but I do think that there's a little bit better feeling around the program because one, time has passed and you've gotten further away from last season. You got rid of a lot of the problems that were on last season's team. And you did. I mean, you retooled your staff and your roster pretty extensively at, like we just talked about, the positions that you had to do it. Now, I don't know of too many people that are like over the moon about Castellanos, but I do think people are happy about the way that they've gone out and attacked the portal on the offensive line. and the wide receiver room. So I do think people are happy with some of the things around him. So I don't know. I'd say if everybody was like a 0, back at the end of the year, or a 1 or a 2, it's probably it's probably somewhere between our numbers, to be honest with you, somewhere between 35 and 50, and that's kind of where everybody is at this moment. So
All right,
I don't
so
know.
the
People are
official.
definitely in a better mood, though. People are in a better mood than they were.
No, I agree with that. So the official double fries no slaw temperature check, if we're going on the Celsius scale, 0 to 100, is a 42.5.
I think that's fair. Okay, so what I wonder with that is that's probably like where we're at right now. I wonder what people's thoughts are for Mike Norvell long term.
That's
Like that's
tough.
that's not something I had planned to talk about, and we don't have to get super deep on this, but I do wonder, like, are people confident that Mike Norvell is the long term answer at Florida State? Like, is your average fan?
I think that's a really tough question. Obviously, if you would put that question out last December, meaning 2023, it would have been a 10 or a 100. Like, everyone was all in on him. Alabama's athletic director came out and said directly they have only had 2 candidates, Kevin DeBoer and Mike Norvell, and Norvell loves it at Florida State. But 2-10 is unforgivable, TJ. It just really is. And I think he had so much goodwill in this fan base, and he has a lot to try and earn back. I think he needs to win probably 9 regular season games this year just to get the faith back in him from the fan base, and more importantly, from the people who pay his paycheck, the boosters.
Yeah, I think what's tough is, say you did go out and win 9 games this year. Who's to say we don't go 2-10 the year after? Right now, I
Yeah.
realize that probably is never going to happen again.
Yeah.
But who's to say that doesn't happen? Right? Like, how? So I think he needs to probably very seriously, like, put it together for several years. Right? Like, even just 1 year of really good, I don't know if that gets you all the way back, like, in people's grace, because, like, they're going to need to see you not do it again. They're going to need to see you not, like, have the fall. Now, you go out and win. I mean, if you won 8, you won 8 games this year, and then you win 10 the year after, and then you're competing for something serious the year. Like, you do 3 years of, like, good. Even if you went 8-9-9 or 8-9-10 or something like that, then I think that's when people would be like, okay, well, it's sustained. Because last time you won 10 and then 13, which was great, but then you immediately fell out. Like, there was nothing sustained about it, right? And a lot of those were the same players. It was very easy to run it back with the same group of guys. So I don't know. I think it's got to be a little bit more of a sustained effort than. I don't know if 1 year of anything this year is going to have everybody bout back on. Now, people we'll take the temperature check again, right? We're at a 42 right now. It would be if we win 9 games, it'll be up around a 70.
Yeah,
right? It'll be up around a 75, but you're not going to be at the 100 you were at just 12 months ago.
Yeah, no, and it's tricky for him because you have to take into account the compensation, right? He is one of the highest paid coaches in all of college football. He was paid $10 million this year to win 2 football games. That's not going to sit well with people. And again, the expectation at Florida State should be a minimum 10 wins a year. Now, are you going to achieve that every single year? No, you will not. You'll have some seasons where you might win 6 games, you might win 8 games, but the expectation should be a minimum of 10 wins every year, understanding that injuries happen, that there's lapses in recruiting where you just miss on one spot and that one spot happened to hurt you the most. That all does happen. But I think when you take into account how much money he's being paid, and I know he's donating some back, whatever, that doesn't do anything for me, to be honest.
Give me some money and I'll put you up higher.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. But yeah, I think when he was considered by most media outlets a top 5 coach in the country before the 2024 season happened. Now, some aren't even having him in the top 25 because I've already seen some of these way too early lists because we are in list season and we'll probably get into some list in the next few weeks or so. But yeah, I think he's got his work cut out for him because if he wasn't owed what he was owed, $60+ million in buyout money, I don't think he would have survived.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The other thing that you mentioned on recruiting, that's the biggest thing to me long term is, hey, you kind of got shown why recruiting is so important. Now can you go out and do something about it? Like if they don't, Richie, if they don't get, like I'm not all the way sold, right? Like I'm not all the way sold on like it's time to move on. Now, do I think that Mike
I
Norvell
need
is
a
the guy
top
long
10
term?
class. I need a top 10 class.
Yeah, I was gonna say 12 is the number for me.
Yeah,
Because
that's
I
fair.
expect them to go about 7-5, 8-4. I think top 10 would be pretty aggressive there. But if you can go 12, top 12 ish, if it's a smaller class and you're like 13, 14, but your average is really high, you're not, I don't. It doesn't bother me if it's just like, oh well, I don't need to see them take 7 3-stars at the end just to bump the class up or whatever, right?
No,
Like
no.
so that's kind of the way I look at it is can they be around that 12 range, right? Based on the number of guys they take. And I mean, they're off to a good start in 2026. Like, let's be honest, they've got a top 5
They are.
class right now. So it's way, way long from signing day right now. But if they can continue to grow that and be a little bit better, then we'll see. But the recruiting has to get better, or else he's not going to be the long-term guy at Florida State. Like this is a talent acquisition business. You've got to bring in talent, and we haven't shown the ability to do that at a good enough rate yet. So we'll see if they change that. Richie, give Roback some love real quick.
Yeah, go out to roback.com, RHOBACK.com. Use promo code DFNS20, and you will get 20% off your first order. They have some of the best performance polos, hoodies, joggers, shorts, anything you can think about. Plenty of great Florida State stuff, but also, I'm wearing just one of their long sleeve performance shirts right now that I wore to church this morning, and it's amazing. I promise you, if you buy from them once, you'll buy from them again. That's RHOBACK.com, promo code DFNS20.
All right, let's talk about this, and then we will move on. North Carolina, a report came out this week from it's actually the Athletics' Matt Baker now, as well as Brendan Marks, that North Carolina has spent well over $600,000 in legal fees exploring options to get out of the ACC. They call it their Carolina Blue Matter, which is great. Everything's got a code name, right? UNC very much not wanting to be in the limelight on this thing, but very much wanting to get out of the conference. I did a video on the national channel because it was UNC related and not necessarily FSU specific. But what's your immediate reaction to this?
Yeah, I was not surprised at all. Some people might be because if you think of the ACC, you immediately think of the triangle, right? Duke, Carolina, NC State, Wake Forest. That's just what you tend to think of. But North Carolina is also you have to be pretty intelligent to get in there. And the people running that university and the athletic programs are very intelligent. And they understand that what is going on in the ACC versus what the SEC and the Big Ten have coming up, it's just not something that's sustainable. I think that's very clear. So I'm not surprised that they've been somewhat covert in the terms of trying to see if there's other options outside of the ACC. In North Carolina, they have an endowment that they could afford to get out if they wanted to, quite honestly. So I'm not surprised by any of that at all. But that's the thing about being a public university. These things come to light. The article I saw was actually in the New York Times, and I can't remember who they cited as their source, if it was Baker or someone else. Baker, people love him or hate him, but he does a phenomenal job of, getting information that other people simply do not get. But yeah, I was not shocked at all to see North Carolina because I think North Carolina has a permanent home in the Big Ten if that's what they end up deciding.
Yeah, I actually think they are a little more likely SEC bound, but we'll see what happens there. So when we make a wager on that. But yeah, no, I do think what's interesting about it though is their athletic director Bubba Cunningham was very outspoken about like supporting the league and
Yeah.
kind of calling us out for different things.
He didn't kind of call us out. He straight up called us out.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the entire time, his university is essentially preparing for the same thing, and so I just think it's pretty hypocritical
Yeah.
of them to do that. Now, I will say, I have heard from folks around, actually, some folks at Florida State, that there are some split loyalties, some split ideas on what North Carolina should do. Bubba Cunningham is very much an ACC guy, whereas some of these board of trustees, they just want what's best for the university. They're not necessarily concerned about what's most important for the conference. So I do think that it's possible that Bubba had his opinions, he made them known. Florida State, or I'm sorry, UNC from a school perspective has their kind of ways of wanting to go about things, and so they're making them known. And so, all that said, like maybe it's not so bad, but I was told when Bubba said some of those things that he was very much in. North Carolina is still the team that they're the third team that voted against expansion, right? Like this is not that shocking to me.
Yeah.
The shocking part is that Bubba was very much like, screw FSU when we were going down and doing all that stuff. So, anyway, I think that part of it's hypocritical and something that I found rather hilarious.
No, and he was if I remember correctly, because I get my feelings. I tweet at people. I tweeted at him directly. I'm pretty sure he was very vocal in calling Florida State out. Basically saying, what are you doing? Why would you even do this? When they had started that process well before he made those comments. So I agree with the hypocritical part, but I don't blame North Carolina at all for wanting to get out of the ACC. I don't blame any school, any name brand school for wanting to get out of the ACC because it just financially makes more sense. If you make more money, you build better facilities, you recruit better, and you have to rely on less money from your boosters and fans for NIL because so they can give more to the NIL because you don't need their money for facilities and enhancements of stadiums across all sports. So yeah, it's definitely hypocritical, and especially when he made. I don't remember when he made his public comments, literally calling out Florida State, while his legal team was already in the process of doing the back channeling that they were doing.
Yeah, they were. What's funny is they filed the suit.
Yep.
I'm sorry, they started.
Yeah.
They started their research, their due diligence prior to Florida State filing their lawsuit, well before in 2022. The other interesting thing, we talked about the money, right? Florida State spent over $3 million. Clemson's last reported number was about $1 million. I'd imagine they're up closer to 2 now, just based on like the timing of things. I'm not telling you that that's definitely the case. That was reported on about halfway through the whole situation. Now we're further. It would seem to me that they're probably spending a little bit more money. UNC spent like $620,000. Like, they're getting closer to that over $500,000 just to like research. Like, I think that should tell you like how serious they are. It's not just.
And they're getting these lawyers at a discounted rate.
Oh, for sure.
At North Carolina. So if we're talking market rate, they're probably at 1.5 right now.
Yeah. So there's something here. We'll see where it ends up going. Not telling you that anything happens by a certain date or whatever, but I think the UNC aspect of this, again, something that we all didn't, I don't think it shocks anybody. Like everybody knew that UNC would be the third team in this kind of triangle. They're the team that voted against expansion. They're the team that has the Jordan brand. They're the team that, or the program that very much would benefit from being outside of this conference, just like the Big Two are. But again, this is kind of the ACC's pride and joy, like their baby, and that's what probably makes it the most fun for everybody else watching. Hopefully, the ACC just kind of crumble and cater a little bit. So,
yeah, and I'll just say this: obviously Miami came out very much in favor of the ACC when all the Florida State news broke. Miami is a private institution. They do not have to release any information at all. I would not be shocked one bit if Miami was already in talks with the SEC or Big Ten, just to gauge interest. So I think there's a lot more of this going on. This just coming to light, I think it was 5 days ago when the article came out that I saw in the New York Times. That, it's not surprising at all. And, again, it's the private schools that the ACC really needs to worry about because they don't have to release any information to them. If you're a public university, you have to release everything. So it'll be very interesting the next, 12, 18 months to see what happens.
Richie, let me give some love to Garnet and Gold, and we'll get some shout-outs and stuff going. GarnetandGold.com. Make sure that you're shopping there. Code NOSLAW, N-O-S-L-A-W, for all of your FSU gear, merch, all of those needs that you may have. Again, GarnetandGold.com, NOSLAW, N-O-S-L-A-W. Got a lot of baseball, softball stuff there online you can go check out. I'm actually putting an order in this week, so go check them out. Richie, any shout-outs or anything before we get out of here? A quicker show today. We like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Shout out to the basketball team for Wednesday. They were down 16 points. The first game after the announcement that Coach Hamill will be retiring at the end of the season. And they came back and won the game at Wake Forest on the road. Wake Forest is not a great team, but any road win in the ACC is always a good win. Unfortunately, they got blown out by Clemson at home yesterday, but I'll pretend that never happened.
Yeah, shout out to the baseball and softball team. Softball off to a great start, lost their first game, haven't lost again since, and then baseball 2-0 right now, up 5-0, or 4-0, sorry, in the fifth inning. They should pick up their third win of the season today. Maintain elite status. So, oh, did you lose me for a second? Still there? It said like lost network connection, and then it just came back like really fast. I didn't think it would come back that fast. So, all right, that's all I got. Appreciate BetUS, appreciate Roback, appreciate Garnet and Gold, and of course Guthrie's for their support. Richie, I will talk to you next week, man. Go Noles.
Sounds good.